Mr Speaker.
Thank you. I call the honourable member Sue Moroni. Tēnā koe.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Well, that was the arrogance of the National Party personified, was it not? There's Craig Foss of the National Party telling New Zealanders that their problems don't exist. Invisible problems, he said. Invisible problems. He said that when 1 in 4 children live in poverty, that doesn't exist in Mr Foss's or the National Party's world because it's invisible to them. It's an invisible problem. And then he went on to talk about invisible money. Well, isn't it interesting that when the Labour Party has an idea that really resonates with the community that they really need, that's funded with invisible money, but when the National Party finds $360 million to give some bonuses to a few principals, somehow that's not invisible. Well, Mr Foss and your colleagues in the National Party, open up your eyes and stop being in denial about some of the very real issues and challenges that exist in this country. Because I think the National Party is just demonstrating how arrogant and out of touch it has got, talking about problems that New Zealanders have, that we have as a society, and pretending they don't exist. Invisible problems. 1 in 4 children living in poverty in this country, and they laugh about it. They think it's pretty funny, but actually these are the issues that school teachers are dealing with day in and day out. And if they think that their expert principal with $50,000 more in his pocket is going to be the answer to the problem, it's going to be the answer to the problem of children who are constantly on the move from school to school to school because their family is staying one step ahead of the bailiff. If they think the expert principal is going to change the course of that child's life, then they need to start remembering that these are not invisible problems. These are very real problems. But it is a government that's clearly out of ideas, because what have they been talking about since the beginning of the parliamentary term? They've been talking about extending paid parental leave, because they have so run out of ideas about what to do next that they've come looking to the Labour Party for their inspiration. It's absolutely clear that it's Labour that has been setting the agenda from the beginning of the year, because what's the conversation been about? It's been about children, and it's been about prioritising children, and it's been about extending paid parental leave. That government is out of ideas because it's out of touch with ordinary New Zealanders. And in the Labour Party, we don't have to do the focus groups and the constant polling research that the National Party does to find out that paid parental leave and extending it is a very important thing for most New Zealanders, because we are in touch with most New Zealanders and we knew that that was actually something that would make a real difference to families. We don't have to do the constant polling that suddenly has given the National Party a bit of a fright, and after years now of voting against any form of paid parental leave, they voted against it in 2002, they voted against it when Labour extended it 3 more times during the course of our term, they voted against it when my bill was drawn out in 2012. So these are really interesting issues, because suddenly they've had an epiphany. Because not only have they voted against it every time that it's been in this House, and we had a Minister of Women's Affairs on her feet before, the first Minister of Women's Affairs in New Zealand ever to vote against paid parental leave, standing up here trying to lecture this side of the House on what she thinks is right for New Zealand. But they've voted against extending paid parental leave, or even introducing it in the first place in the National Party. It is in their genes to be opposed to it. It's absolutely in their DNA. But not only that, they then, when they realised that they'd lost the majority support in Parliament and the majority support of New Zealanders over their stance on this issue, they threatened a financial veto to stop New Zealanders from being supported in this way. Well, I welcome their backflip on this. I actually think that despite the fact that it's not because they firmly believe in this policy, it's a bit of electioneering that's going on, but come and talk. The door's always open because the National Party's not going to get away with saying, oh yeah, we'll do this sometime after the election. New Zealanders aren't going to buy that. They know the National Party's record on this. They know the track record of the National Party. The National Party needs to put its money where its mouth is. There is a bill before this Parliament right now that they should be supporting. If they absolutely believe in prioritising families and children, then they will do the right thing and support my bill that's due back in this House very soon for its second reading to extend paid parental leave to 26 weeks. If they really believe that, then they will come and start discussions through the Select Committee to support this very good Labour bill. And yes, it does happen to be in my name, but it's the Labour Party who in the last election pledged to have 26 weeks paid parental leave. And now we've confirmed it. We've confirmed it and we've wrapped it around with a much more comprehensive policy. And I almost want to apologise for the National Party if they can't understand comprehensive policies, because I think that's the problem here. If they can't understand the very comprehensive problems that exist in New Zealand and the comprehensive policies that are needed to fix it, then I think that tells us we've got a government that's way past its use-by date, way past its use-by date. Because it's simple, but it's effective, and it's actually putting money where it needs to be. And that's with children and with families, not into your casinos, not into your Rio Tintos, not into your hundreds of millions of dollars spent on consultants to flog off the country's state assets, because that's where that government's put their money. That's where they've put your invisible money, Craig Foss. If you're looking for it, it's actually in the pockets of the consultants who you spend hundreds of millions of dollars on flogging off the state assets. Well, we don't want to spend money on that. Our priority in the Labour Party is different. Our priority is with children. And we have said, here's a Best Start package. It's not just, a one-off thing. It's actually a Best Start package. So children are going to benefit because their families will have $60 more a week in their pocket. $60 more a week in their pocket to actually help with all of those things in the first year of life when that money is so desperately needed. $60 a week more. And Mr Foss seemed confused because he wanted people who are on paid parental leave to be able to double dip and get it as well. Well, Mr Foss, here's news for you and your National Party cronies. The Labour Party isn't going to support double dipping. It won't support what you're wanting. We instead are extending, for the people who are actually entitled and eligible for paid parental leave, we're going to extend that by another 12 weeks for them. So do the maths. $488 a week times 12 weeks extra is kind of a little bit more than $60 a week for that 12 weeks that they aren't going to be allowed to double dip under Labour's policy. So the National Party might be crying out for double dipping. That might be in their DNA, but it's certainly not in our DNA. But we will make sure that all of those children are well supported in the first year of life, and that's what's important. They are going to benefit because their parents will either be entitled to $60 a week that they haven't got now to help them out with buying nappies, with food, with all of those things that come with having a new baby, or their parents will be entitled to extended paid parental leave under Labour. It's as simple as that. It's not that complex, but it is important to get every one of those families having better support under a Labour government. But it's really clear it will only be under a Labour-led government. And this year, fortunately, New Zealanders get a chance to actually say what they want to see as priorities in this country. I reckon they're going to pick children over casinos.
I call the Honourable Minister.